Hello and welcome back to Reality Recap, the one and only site where we strip away the veneer, dig a little deeper, and reveal the tales TLC would never be brave enough to air. I am your host, and today we have a tale so scandalous, so incendiary, it risks reducing the meticulously built persona of the Brown family to ashes once and for all. We believed the saga was limited to the Browns themselves, the constant divorces, the bitter feuding, the financial woes. But we were mistaken, dead wrong. The decay wasn't remaining within the family, it was spreading, seeping into the soil of their so-called promised land. What you're looking at right now is a piece of footage that's been quietly circulating in a very private, very select group within Flagstaff, Arizona. This clip shows Kody Brown completely unfiltered, raw. Not polished for TLC cameras, not edited for a storyline, this was for his neighbors. He isn't just talking, he's raging, yelling. You can't quite hear the words, but the rage, the uncontrolled fury is clear. He is gesturing, flailing his arms, totally losing it. And that one moment, that is the spark that destroyed everything, the iceberg tip of a tragic disaster. Because that clip is connected to a ruinous civil lawsuit, one that has been brewing in the background in secret, not brought by Christine, not by Janelle, not even by Meri. This one was brought by the Browns' neighbors, the other victims of Cody and Robyn's Coyote Pass catastrophe. But first, let's unpack the explosive documents, the leaks, and the insider accounts that spill the real tea on what actually went on. I need you to do me one huge favor first. If you enjoy watching the uncensored truth about sister wives, like this video now. It tells YouTube that you want more videos just like this. And if you don't already, for the sake of all things sensational, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you won't regret it. This one's explosive. So are you ready? Let's get started. To grasp just how deep this sabotage runs, we have to rewind back to the very start of the Coyote Pass dream. Remember the wide-eyed optimism, the expansive drone shots over virgin land, the ponderosa pines, the endless vistas of the mountains, the dream of a Brown family utopia. Cody planted himself on that ground, arms out wide, proclaiming it their forever home, their legacy. 4 homes, one harmonious family. Grandkids zooming freely from yard to yard. It was dizzying, but as we all know too well, that dream began to rot near immediately. The arguments over land divisions were the initial fissures. Christine wanted out. Janelle remained practical, but brushed aside. Meri left alone to her own devices. And Robyn and Cody were too busy constructing their own little kingdom. A kingdom which wouldn't fall apart due to family drama, but due to the very neighbors they'd neglected. As TLC played up Christine's leave, taking, the failed one, house endeavor, and the notorious COVID procedures, a different drama was quietly detonating across the property lines. A darker, nastier, much more lasting one. Our informants, individuals familiar with the Coyote Pass neighborhood and its inhabitants, do not depict a rosy scene. These are not random transients. These are property owners who, like the Browns, purchased their slice of Arizona for serenity. Retirees, families with young children, individuals who sunk life savings into country calm. And then the Browns arrived. Initial neighbors were guardedly hopeful. A television family in the neighborhood, odd perhaps, but purportedly low. Impact. That hope was short-lived. Within months, the warning signs cropped up. The first, based on an unsubstantiated report from a neighbor, was the dogs. Yes, we've actually seen Robyn's and Cody's dogs on film, but what we didn't get to see was what transpired off camera. From the report, their 2 big dogs were hardly ever well, contained, handled less as pets and more as wild, loose, roaming prairie dogs. The animals roamed freely onto other individuals' property. Initially, it was a bother. A neighbor would walk them back and remind them politely. Things took a turn, though. One account states that a dog chased someone's chickens. Another states that a dog was seen barking viciously at a kid in his yard playing. The dad had to run outside and chase the dog off from his frightened child. And when challenged, Cody's reaction wasn't an apology. Arrogance by all accounts. Dismissive. An eyewitness to one of those initial confrontations characterized Cody's demeanor thus. Dismissive. Flat out. His attitude. Dogs are dogs. This is the United States of America, not some private gated community subdivision. He reportedly behaved as if the neighbors were at fault, as if they just didn't value freedom. But this wasn't merely a case of irresponsible pet ownership. It was a flagrant expression of disrespect. It was the Browns setting their own agenda, marking their own turf, and the rest of the world be damned. And this wasn't an isolated occurrence, it became a pattern. Neighbors ultimately created a group text chain to monitor it all. Threads such as, "Cody's dog in my yard again," or "Has anyone spotted the brown dog? It was chasing deer along my boundary line." The intrusions became a baseline, low-grade source of stress. It was the initial crack in what ought to have been friendly harmony. Then came the noise. We've all seen Cody's manic energy on the show. Now imagine living right next to it, day after day, night after night. Sources describe the endless screaming fights coming from Robyn's house, echoing across the once tranquil landscape. These weren't hushed disagreements. These were full-blown top-of-the-lungs battles that could allegedly be heard hundreds of yards away. One neighbor was quoted as saying that they didn't even need to watch the show, they received the highlights, live, and in real time every other evening. They could hear Robyn's hysterical weeping, Cody's guttural bellows, the whole package. But it wasn't just marital blow-ups. It was the sound of Cody's failed ambitions. Remember his obsession with that infamous cistern, the giant hole that was supposed to supply water for the dream homes? Well, an insider paints a stunning picture of what that meant for those nearby. Cody, fueled by what seemed like desperation, would allegedly head to the property at all hours. We're talking 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, 6 a.m. on a Sunday, and he wasn't quiet. He'd haul out power tools, floodlights attached to his truck, and begin digging. One neighbor alleges they were awoken several times by the rumble of an excavator, the whine of a gas auger, or simply Cody himself yelling at a recalcitrant piece of equipment. It was spotty, sudden driveling. Imagine sitting on your front porch gazing at a peaceful mountain sunset only to have it disrupted by the sight of an adult man screaming at a trench. Hilarious if you are watching a sketch. But if you lived there, it was a nightmare. These frequent disturbances became the rich ground where seeds of litigation were sown. Gradually, the neighbors' 4 or 5 other owners of properties along the Browns' property started sharing experiences. They knew they all shared the same experience, their tranquility ruined by one family's mayhem. They were no longer just neighbors, they were living within the blast zone of the Brown explosion, so they decided to do something, but they didn't rush straight to a lawsuit. Our legal insider says the first action was a polite, formal letter, written with a local lawyer's assistance. It cataloged complaints: the loose dogs, the excessive noise, the constant interruption. In legalese, it was a cease and desist notice, but tempered to be as neighborly as possible. It was an olive branch, a call for basic decency and respect. And what did Cody do, in his boundless wisdom? Supposedly, he set that olive branch ablaze. Figuratively speaking, naturally. That moment, how he reacted was the turning point. The patience of the neighbors broke. What had the potential to be a civil dispute became war, because Cody didn't recognize a reasonable ask. He recognized an assault. A conspiracy. One of the families has a relative close to Cody, describing what followed. Cody failed to reply with his own attorney's letter. He didn't propose a peaceful meetup. Instead, he is claimed to have gone on the attack. This is where the veiled threats kicked in a foundation of the ensuing lawsuit. He never issued explicit, actionable threats. Our source is careful to clarify. Cody is at least smart enough not to do that. Instead, he instigated what court documents would come to characterize as a campaign of intimidation. Neighbors saw him standing at the fence line, gazing at their houses for long, awkward intervals. He'd pace the fence line, making boisterous, over-the-top phone calls, talking about things like how a patriarch must defend his kingdom and guard his property from encroachers. The language remained ambiguous, but the targets of his ire could not have been more obvious. And perhaps the most disturbing of all the claims, it is about a neighbor who had just spent money on a brand new, pricey fence installed just to keep Cody's dogs out. A matter of only a few days after that fence was erected, Cody was reportedly seen pacing back and forth along its perimeter. The neighbor, sitting quietly in her window, caught the sound of him on the phone speaking something to the effect of, "People believe that fences protect them. But out here, the wind, the elements they have a way of destroying everything. It'd be a shame if nature took back over this property. Imagine hearing that. The threat is ominous. A threat wrapped in Cody's strange pseudo-spiritual pioneer, mandrivel, unfiltered, unedited Kody Brown. And that was the last straw. At that moment, the neighbors knew there was no talking to him. To Cody, he was not just a resident, he was a self-styled warrior king fighting for his territory. And they were the invaders at the gates. So, they did what they did. They joined forces, retained a prominent Flagstaff law firm, and what we feel was in late 2023, they formally brought a civil lawsuit against both Cody and Robyn Brown, co-owners of the Coyote Pass land at the heart of the drama. Now, though, the formal filing has been hard to come by, particularly with settlement possibility, present our legal source, who has been informed of its contents, provided us with a rare first look at the allegations. The lawsuit was brought under the doctrine of public nuisance. This is not merely about being a pesky neighbor. Legally, a public nuisance is conduct so troublesome that it substantially infringes on others' use and enjoyment of their property and peace. It involves a course of conduct outrageous enough to affect not only one household, but the community at large, and this suit, apparently more than 30 pages. A detailed chronological account of years of living through the Browns' mayhem. This is how the charges categorize. Allegation 1. Uncontrolled domestic animals. The complaint spelled out repeated occurrences of Cody and Robyn's loose dogs. This wasn't accidental. It was a clear documented trend. It listed dates, times, the chicken chasing incident, and even the frightening encounter with a neighbor's little child. But it didn't end there. The lawsuit emphasized the emotional damage. Parents said they could no longer allow their children or pets to run freely. Their own backyards were a source of fear. Allegation 2. Excessive and unreasonable noise. This portion read like a textbook in recording pandemonium. Neighbors cataloged the late-night building projects, Cody's equipment bellowing at times clearly in violation of local laws, and the legendary screaming fights with exact quotes of phrases neighbors heard. One plaintiff even maintained a sound journal, noting each occurrence, which was brought as proof. The suit claimed the disturbance was not usual country life. It was unpredictable, aggressive, and emotionally disorienting, transforming houses designed to be havens into places of perpetual apprehension. Allegation 3. A campaign of intimidation and veiled threats. This was the darkest part. It detailed Cody's long gazes from the property line, his boisterous, graphic phone calls about defending his kingdom, and, naturally the most incriminating of all, the fence remark. The lawsuit did not present this as the behavior of an offbeat reality television star. It portrayed it as a calculated effort to intimidate. Neighbors were not just uneasy. They claimed that they felt threatened. Allegation 4. Extreme devaluation of property. This is where the Browns took the brunt. The neighbors hired a certified real estate appraiser, and the report was crippling. It contended that any potential buyer who was investigating the neighborhood would instantly find two things. The property was associated with the Sister Wives television show, which the appraiser trenchantly characterized as a media circus that would drive off buyers who wanted to be left alone. The constant neighbor feud was on the public record, so the neighborhood appeared to be toxic. The appraiser determined that the presence of the Browns had rendered the neighborhood blighted, lowering property values by an estimated 15% for a house valued at $800,000. That is as much as $160,000 lost. And all in all, the damages were approximated in the high six figures, more than $1 million. This was no longer simply about quiet and peace. The neighbors were suing for actual, tangible damages, cold, hard money. And they were bringing this with documentation, a chronology of grievances, and an alliance of landowners who were willing to stand together and make Cody and Robyn pay. When Cody and Robyn were served with the lawsuit, it wasn't just a legal inconvenience. It was an all-out existential threat to the remaining vestiges of their Coyote Pass dream. Panic, denial, delusion, and desperation, all simultaneously. The instant that lawsuit hit their lap in their multi-million-dollar McMansion, the one they purchased rather than constructing on their promised land, pandemonium broke out. Our sources paint pictures of complete panic, but it manifested in two very different, equally destructive manners. For Robyn, it was a plunge into what one source described as peak victimhood. She was said to be inconsolable. From an unconfirmed insider, she didn't view the lawsuit as a retribution for their behavior. She viewed it as persecution. "Why is everyone coming at us?" she reportedly wailed. "We just want to be left alone, and the world keeps coming at us." For her, this was only an escalation of normal family drama. These were the same kind of neighbors as Christine, or the trolls on the internet jealous outsiders looking to bring them down. There was reportedly no introspection, no accountability. Robyn couldn't even imagine Cody had done something that warranted this. She reportedly informed a family acquaintance. The neighbors were bullies that were ganging up on them just because they were celebrities. The lack of self-awareness was mind-boggling. Cody, however, responded with cold, ungentlemanly anger, a righteous anger. He didn't perceive a civil disagreement. He perceived a statement of war. Supposedly, he ranted to anyone who would listen that this was an organized attack on his freedom, his property rights, even his manhood. One of his sources close to him then stated Cody believed that his neighbors acted on behalf of his enemies, maybe disgruntled former relatives or locals who had never liked him. To himself, he was a martyr, a frontier man persecuted by a society that did not comprehend him. He reportedly said to Robyn, "They want to cage me. Turn this wild land into some cookie cutter suburb with an hoa. I won't let them. I'll fight with everything I've got." And that early combativeness would lay the groundwork for his first, and perhaps worst legal error. Spurred by hubris and a need to save a buck, Cody decided he could do this on his own. He envisioned himself bursting into a courtroom or law office and pushing through with his trademark combination of bluster, circular argument, and emotional harangues. He thought his truth was so self-evident that the system would be unable to avoid embracing it. According to reports, he wrote his own reply to the lawsuit, a paper one legal expert we spoke with described as a rambling, nonsensical manifesto. It touched not on the legal allegations at all. Instead, it was an angry rant about his family's plight, media bias, and his philosophical right as a landowner to do as he pleased. Essentially, it was legal suicide. It wasn't until Robyn, in a fleeting moment of lucidity through her tears, and with desperate pleading from their few remaining advisors, persuaded him to bring on a proper attorney that he finally agreed. But by then, the catastrophic tone had already been established. Cody wasn't a defendant looking for a fair outcome. He was a belligerent, digging in for a fight to the death, and the old wives. How did they respond to this latest crisis engulfing the remnants of their old family? Sources close to the situation said their responses were revealing. Christine was said to have felt a deep sense of relief. For her, this was ultimate vindication. She had long witnessed this side of Cody, the anger, the irrationality, the failure to listen. The lawsuit, to her mind, was confirmation to the world of what she had intelligently fled. A friend reports she responded with something akin to, "Well, that figures. I am so glad I don't have to put up with that anymore." Her name was not mentioned in the lawsuit. Her property was not threatened. This was Cody and Robyn's affair, their own. Janelle's response was more multifaceted. She still owned part of the Coyote Pass property. Her money, her dream, her future, all wrapped up in that earth. A friend close to her confirmed she was angry, but not at the neighbors, with Cody. Practical to the point of being austere, Janelle reportedly viewed this lawsuit as the natural result of Cody's arrogance. She had gently warned him for years about his aggressive approach. Now, his ego was about to ruin her whole investment. She allegedly called her own attorney shortly afterwards, doing everything she could to shield herself from financial damage. For Janelle, this wasn't drama. It was a clear and present danger to her nest egg, the security she'd spent her entire life building. And then there was Meri. True to character, her participation was removed, even mysterious. She too had landed at Coyote Pass, but spiritually, she had long disengaged from that fantasy. In our informant's view, Meri had seen the whole thing as a pathetic, sad circus, evidence of the total collapse of the family unit that she had once wanted so badly to believe in. Yes, she invested in her, but emotionally, it was just another Tuesday morning in the train wreck that was Kody Brown's life. She watched from afar, a dispassionate and unaffected observer. Thus, the tables were set. Against them, a united, well-organized, financially insulated group of neighbors with a solid legal claim. Against them was a fragmented, dysfunctional couple hemorrhaging cash, an enraged, demented patriarch, and a sobbing, victim complex-ridden wife. The stage was set precisely for a battle in court, but Cody and Robyn hadn't counted on one essential fact. Their enemies weren't merely fighting for peace and quiet. They were fighting for the worth of their homes, their life's biggest investments, and they were about to unleash a legal tactic that struck the Browns where it hurt the most, their tenuous and downright disastrous money situation. The suit was the tipping point. Their cash flow problems, gasoline. The whole Coyote Pass fantasy was going to go up in smoke. As the case entered discovery, the depositions, the production of evidence, Cody and Robyn's scrupulously constructed reality television persona started to crack. Behind the closed doors, the ugly, dysfunctional reality came out, and we have the inside scoop. Welcome back to Reality Recap. We've laid out the Bombshell lawsuit filed by the Coyote Pass neighbors against Cody and Robyn Brown. Filing a lawsuit is one thing. Winning it is another. And the pre-trial phase, known as discovery, is where the story shifted from a neighborhood dispute to a psychological deep dive into Cody and Robyn, exposing their deepest flaws and sealing their fate. It all started with one constitutionally required event, the deposition. This is part 2 of our in-depth special on the lawsuit that derailed the Browns' Coyote Pass dream. Part 1 discussed the neighbors' complaints of public nuisance, loose dogs, constant noise, veiled threats, and the heartbreaking property devaluation brought on by the Browns' presence. Now we reach the core of the legal showdown, the depositions, the maneuvering, and the debilitating financial realities that transformed a struggle over land into a fight for life. This is where the private failing of the Brown family came into public view, and we have first-hand, unconfirmed insider reports of what happened. For those who are not familiar, a deposition is pre-trial testimony. You sit in a conference room for a lawyer under oath, and opposing counsel can ask you nearly anything that is relevant to the case. Everything is taken down by a court stenographer, and usually videoed. It is a high-pressure situation intended to nail down the truth. For Cody and Robyn, who spent years crafting their television persona, it was a crucible. Our legal source, speaking to sources who were in attendance at the depositions, said they were an unmitigated disaster for the Browns. Let's begin with Robyn, a masterclass in weeping and diversion. According to reports, she showed up at her deposition more than ready to reprise her hallmark role. The victim flanked by Cody and their attorney, she seemed pale and upset, clinging to a tissue before so much as a question was posed. The neighbor's lawyer, a veteran litigator, knew what he was getting himself into. His mission, create a clear-cut pattern of negligence and disregard. Questioning started simply. Miss Brown, do you know that, on several occasions, your dogs have been seen on your neighbor's properties? Robyn's reaction, based on our source, was a spontaneous outburst of tears. She explained how much she adored her dogs, how they were part of the family, and how painful it was to be accused of allowing them to become a nuisance. She asserted they had to have escaped somehow, never with any ill intent. The attorney, unflappable, continued. He showed a record of dates and times. Miss Brown, the plaintiffs have documented over the 20th of September 8 instances in the past year. Would you call that slipping out, or would you call that a lack of proper containment? Robyn reportedly faltered, turned to her lawyer, and launched into a long, rambling explanation, claiming that one dog was an emotional support animal for her children, and became anxious if confined. Robyn attempted to couch her negligence as an act of kindness towards the emotional needs of her dog, but the attorney was merciless. He mentioned the encounter with the neighbor's child. Do you know your dog was discovered barking aggressively at a 4-year-old child on Mr. Property? This is where the true Robyn came out, our source said. The tears allegedly dried for an instant, and in their place was a burst of outrage. My dog would never do that, she allegedly shot back. He is the kindest, nicest soul. That man is lying. People lie about us all the time. They're just trying to hurt our family. At that moment, she wasn't only standing up for her dog, she was calling a father a liar about keeping his own child safe to hurt her. It was shocking, uncompassionate, and now officially on the record. The interrogations then focused on the incessant din. Robyn, according to sources, flat out denied it. She described her marriage to Cody as calm and intimate. We talk, she supposedly said. We don't yell, we have fiery debates because we love each other so intensely. The attorney then made a bombshell announcement, an audio tape, An exasperated neighbor had recorded the noise on her own property, muffled, but recognizable, Cody's bellowing fury and Robyn's ear, piercing, wailing tears. A 30-second audio clip was played in the conference room, and a hush fell over the room. Robyn allegedly blushed bright red, then collapsed into an even more hysterical bout of weeping, blaming the neighbors for illegally taping and invading her privacy. Her lawyer attempted to stop her, but the harm was done. Her believability had been undermined. The deposition, scheduled to go on all day, was abbreviated. Robyn was, by all accounts, a mess, but one who elicited zero sympathy from the other side's counsel. Then Cody arrived, the patriarch self, implodes. If Robyn's deposition was a fiasco, Cody's was an apocalypse. He walked in, purportedly, not as a defendant, but as a king into his throne room, with arrogant confidence bubbling over, believing he could bluster his way out of it. He wasn't. The attorney began with the same series of questions regarding the canines. Cody's reply was unadulterated arrogance. "This is a rural region," he purportedly boomed. "It is the West. Men who founded this country didn't complain about a dog crossing some imaginary property line. Nature isn't something you master with a little fence." The attorney replied calmly, "Mr. Brown, do you know anything about Coconino County leash laws?" Cody allegedly snorted, "I know the laws of nature and the laws of God. Man's laws are flexible, gold for the plaintiffs." The defendant had put it in writing, publicly admitting disdain for local laws. Then there were the intimidation tactics. The lawyer questioned the fence incident and Cody's remark about nature taking it over. Cody did not dispute it, instead framing it as a philosophical musing. "I was simply noting the transience of man's works against the power of nature," he supposedly told him smugly. The lawyer allowed the ridiculousness to hang. "So you weren't implying that some harm might befall your neighbor's costly new fence?" Cody shrugged. "I can't stop the wind, sir. No man can." The deposition completely derailed when the attorney mentioned the property value report. Cody was presented with the appraiser's report, his family's presence, and actions had supposedly set the neighbors back hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is where he supposedly lost it. Our informant recalled him standing, gesturing at the opposing attorney, and embarking upon a classic Cody rant. "This is a lie," he allegedly yelled. "A filthy lie. My family adds value, spirit to that ground. That ground was dead until we arrived. We sanctified it. These people ought to be compensating us. They get to live in the shadow of a monument of faith and family. Their leech is attempting to drain the life out of me because they see a famous guy and dollar signs. It is persecution, a shakedown." His own attorney reportedly attempted to soothe him, whispering, "Cody, stop, Cody." But Cody was going through the motions, acting, reciting the monologue he believed would clear him. Rather, he just dug himself and Robyn deeper in trouble. He seemed unhinged, narcissistic, and totally disconnected from reality. He confessed his disrespect for the law, implicitly admitted the hidden threat, and displayed no remorse. As our legal insider reports, the recording and transcript of Cody's deposition became the one best thing in the neighbor's armory. By now, Cody had done all the work for the neighbors himself. No one needed to establish he was a nuisance anymore. He'd made it loud and clear under oath, and the financial vice grip was clamping down. With the depositions finished, the neighbor's attorney knew that they had the upper hand. Cody and Robyn's attorney knew it too. For all practical purposes, the case was unwinnable in court. A jury would view Cody's rant on video, listen to their screaming arguments on tape, and would almost inevitably grant the plaintiffs everything they asked for, possibly even punitive damages as well. Cody and Robyn's attorney recommended settlement, but the neighbors didn't want an apology or a guarantee of good behavior. They wanted to be made wholly financially. They wanted something paid for the depreciation of their properties. A settlement offer was made, estimated at about $750,000. And here is where reality came crashing down upon the Browns like a freight train. They were broke, television broke. Yes, they had $1 million house and drove expensive cars, but cash flow. A dream, as Reality Recap has speculated for years. Losing the other wives destroyed their TLC revenue. Most of their money was wrapped up in two things: Robyn's house and the Coyote Pass property. They did not have $750,000 in ready cash, probably not even half. The neighbor's legal team had seen this weakness and played it for all it was worth with precision surgical strikes. When the Browns' attorney had tried to counter with a claim of inability to pay the settlement, the neighbor's team made their move. They brought a motion for complete disclosure of assets, bank accounts, tax returns, TLC contracts, everything. Routine course of action when a defendant files for inability to pay. But for Cody and Robyn, a nightmare scenario. Opening their ledgers would reveal the tenuous state of their finances, the gargantuan mortgage against Robyn's home, potential loans, flagging television money, utter public embarrassment. More importantly, it would demonstrate to the court and plaintiffs that a cash settlement wasn't feasible, opening the door to put a lien on their main property, the Coyote Pass property itself. They were stuck battle in court and they'd likely lose, which would cost them a huge judgment and a lien on property. Accept a cash settlement, they couldn't afford it, which would also beget a lien. No matter what direction they went, the result was the same, losing possession of their promised land. And all of this was happening concurrently with an even bigger financial disaster. One only spoken of in hushed tones to date, the alleged bankruptcy link. Here is our inside hypothesis, cobbled together from leaks and a deep knowledge of the Browns' financial history. This lawsuit from the neighbor wasn't merely an issue. It was the proverbial straw breaking the camel's back, putting Cody and Robyn in a corner so tight they were forced to consider the extreme measure. For months, there were rumors that Cody and Robyn's expenditures, coupled with lowered earnings, had sent them to the edge of bankruptcy. The huge mortgage, taxes on both the home and Coyote Pass property, and the expense of upholding Robyn and her kids' lifestyle. It was a recipe for disaster. Our hypothesis threatened with a possible $1 million judgment plus past debts. Cody and Robyn hired a bankruptcy lawyer. This wasn't merely the lawsuit, complete economic devastation. No public bankruptcy records under their names were found. But there are different forms of bankruptcy and sophisticated asset protection means using trusts and LLCs. Our singular hypothesis is that they went into some kind of pre-bankruptcy workout or receivership, relinquishing control over their significant assets to a third-party trustee to deal with debts. This objective, court-appointed expert would have examined their portfolio and noticed one obvious underperforming, trouble-making asset, Coyote Pass. Paying thousands in property taxes, producing no revenue, and now the focal point of an expensive, unwinnable lawsuit. The coming of this money trustee turned everything around. Cody and Robyn were no longer at the reins. All decisions had to be ratified by someone whose one aim was to pay bills and end the money hemorrhaging as effectively as possible. The neighbor's lawyers, clever and tactical, immediately got it. They weren't dealing with the emotional, volatile Kody Brown anymore. They were dealing with an unemotional money man. And so they adjusted their settlement proposal accordingly, no longer insisting on a huge cash award that the estate would be financially unable to pay. They offered instead a plain and bleak solution to the Browns. The proposal was straightforward. The suit would be dismissed, monetary damages waived, and everyone would sign non-disclosure agreements. For this, Cody and Robyn would sell their other portion of the Coyote Pass land. There was a catch, however, they were not offered market value. Not even close. Sources estimate the lowball offer was anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 for land that would fetch at least 4 to 5 times as much. It was a deal for the neighbors and a lifeline for the trustee in bankruptcy. It settled the most costly, volatile of legal disputes, raised cash to pay other debts, and disposed of the poisonous Coyote Pass asset from the estate altogether. Cody, as might have been anticipated, was apoplectic. To sell his promised land to avowed enemies was a form of ultimate humiliation, defeat, surrender, acknowledgement the dream was over. He wanted to fight, to die in a blaze of glory rather than surrender. But this time he wasn't in control. The trustee had all the cards. Robyn, faced with the alternative, public bankruptcy, a judgment against her home, and a long legal fight that would exhaust their remaining resources, finally realized the inevitable. She allegedly cried, explained to Cody that they had no other choice. The dream was over, not with a bang, but with the stroke of a pen in the antiseptic office of a specialist in bankruptcy. The ultimate humiliation, selling their kingdom to the enemy. The terms of the settlement, our insider told us, were harsh and absolute. Term 1. the sale. Cody and Robyn were contractually obligated to sell the remaining interest in Coyote Pass to the plaintiff's newly created corporation, the Coyote Pass Neighbors Association. At that lowball figure, the funds went straight into the bankruptcy trustee's pocket. The land they intended to leave behind as their legacy, upon which Cody had imagined his patriarchal fiefdom, now belonged to the people whom he had so relentlessly tormented. Term 2, the gag order. A stern, permanent non-disclosure agreement kept everyone from talking publicly about the lawsuit, accusations, or settlement. That is why this account never made it to the show or the tabloids. It was buried legally, leaving the Browns to quietly endure the humiliation. Term 3, the banishment. This, our source stressed, was the harshest term. The settlement had a no-contact, no trespass clause. Cody and Robyn were legally prevented from stepping foot on any portion of the Coyote Pass property, even those still owned by Janelle and Meri, if the only way to reach them was to cross through the neighbor's land. That is, he can't even set foot on land his family still technically owns. He had been wiped out legally from his own promised kingdom. The neighbors didn't merely purchase the property, they wiped out Kody Brown from it. They constructed a legal boundary much stronger than any fence he ever threatened to install. Sources indicate that the closing day was one of the worst days of Cody's life. The dream was officially, irretrievably deceased. And it wasn't his rebellious wife, a television network, or forces beyond his control that ended it. It was his own ego. So consumed with being king of his castle, he never saw that he was poisoning the village. His kingdom was reduced to one house and a patch of earth. And now, even that earth was lost. The wisps of a lost kingdom remain. So what is the future for Cody and Robyn Brown? They are stuck. Stuck in their enormous house that they cannot afford, with no promised land to flee to. The dream of a busy family compound has vanished, replaced by the stark reality of a monogamous marriage in a giant house, hemmed in by neighbors who loathe them, and ironically, now own the surrounding land. The Coyote Pass fiasco is an ideal metaphor for the entire Brown family endeavor. It started with hope, a common vision of a communal tomorrow, but it was brought down from within by ego, selfishness, refusal to listen, and an amazing lack of respect for those around them. Cody's dream was never about family, it was about control. And when that control was threatened, whether by a wife who wanted autonomy or a neighbor who wanted quiet, his sole reaction was anger. This lawsuit, this quiet war, is the ultimate public humiliation. Cody lost his wives, he lost the respect of his children, and now he has lost his property. All that is left is a queen in a castle, a deposed king, and an enormous debt. The Browns' quiet on Coyote Pass during recent seasons isn't because they've gotten over it. It is because they're legally prohibited from talking about their glorious failure. They can't talk about the dream because the dream now rests with the very folks they sent to war. So, reality recap team, what do you think? Are you amazed at the low points of Cody and Robyn's actions? Do you accept our insider theory regarding the bankruptcy link? And what do you think the neighbors are going to do with the property now? Leave your theories and comments in the box below. This is a huge story, and I just know that you all are going to have amazing ideas. Thanks for joining this deep dive. This is the kind of inside story you'll only get here at Reality Recap. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with another fan who needs to know the truth. Until next time, stay observant, and never ever trust the narrative they try to sell you.